Have you ever wondered how the professionals practice? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how I get my practice done on a day-to-day basis. It's about using your time effectively and getting the most out of your practice. Hopefully this video today can show you a few insights to how I get my practice done. Okay, so a few things I need to get my putting practice started. Putter, number one. Very important. We've got one lined up ball and then I've got my spirit level. So I am going to go straight into this, and a lot of questions about what the spirit level does, how it works. Okay, so how far is this putt? 1, 2, 3, 4, around about 12 feet. So my aim point break will be halfway on this putt. So we're going to take a couple of paces, 1, 2, and then whereabouts I think my line's going to be, you can kind of see it's a hair right to left. Feel for a slope. I have a read of what I think that is. So I'm going to go at 2%, but this is slightly downhill, so my arm bend comes back a little bit towards the grip of the putter. And then I have my aim point outside the right. And then now we're going to hit a putt. First putt of the day, mind. No warm-ups. Straight into it. Okay, so was that a bad line? No, just a little bit firm. Aim point is always 1 foot past the hole. Then we will go in with the spirit level now, and I'll get a read on this slope. So 2% on my spirit level. And the best way to train aim point is by going round the green and getting different percent slopes. So if you're not familiar with what 2% feels like, find yourself a 2% slope on the green. You know, come on in and get a read on that and really feel, if you can feel in your feet, that's a 2% slope. You know, go ahead and find a 4%, and all of a sudden you find yourself getting pretty good at these feelings in your feet. So our eyes deceive us quite a lot, and generally for me, I'll kind of come behind the hole and I'm looking at stuff behind here that isn't within that 12 foot that I've just hit the putt. So, you know, none of this over here matters because I'm not hitting the ball through it. So why do we look beyond the hole? I don't know. So I'll leave a link down below for Jamie Donaldson. He has helped me so much learning aim point, and we saw him earlier in the year. Probably going to go and see him again. And you know, aim point's been a massive part to my putting and helping it. So yeah, it gives you a great process to run through. And as I was saying, you know, all of a sudden you start getting your feels on a 2, 3, 4%, and before you know it, you're pretty good at feeling what slope there is. So yeah, depending on uphill, downhill, you know, I have a different arm bend. So obviously further away from me, it will be slower, and then closer to me will be quicker. And then I have certain points on my putter to where I know that the love heart on the lab shaft here is around about a 9 stimp green. So, you know, all of a sudden you get on a 10, you know it's a little bit shorter than that, and it's, you know, you can get pretty dialed in. So yeah, let's go on to putt number 2 and see how we get on with this read. So yeah, that first putt there, I mean, it's actually a pretty good read. Maybe a hair over, but pretty good. Just the speed was way out. So let's see if we can get a better speed here. So really similar again, I'm going to go 2, but this is now uphill. So my arm bend is now further forward. Go at about a 7 stimp. Good speed, maybe just an overread. So all of a sudden, starting to see a pattern. Overread, overread. You know, 2 putts in, we won't deep it too much, but was it an overread? Oh, it wasn't. Maybe I just played it too slow. Yeah, so that is, it's coming in at a 2.5%, so wasn't actually far off with the read. So just to give you a visual of what I'm kind of seeing is my 2 fingers there go to the middle of the hole, and then we have a point out here that we're now aiming at. So 3% obviously would be further, 2, 1. Okay, so now that we've got the perfect read, we're now going to hit the putt again. And hopefully it goes in. Okay, so putt number 3. Wow. Wow. We've got a putt on our hands here. So this is super, super downhill, and my fingers are going to almost be, you know, to about a 14, 15 stimp. For every percent downhill, I'll get the measurements, but it's pretty scary. Actually, no, I don't want to say how. Keep going. There are AimPoint measurements for certain percent slope downhill. You can find them on aimpoint.com. So I'll leave that all linked below. This is going to be very, very quick. But now what AimPoint does is actually gives me a guide to where I've now got a line that AimPoint's given me, rather than me just roughly guessing this putt. It's a super hard putt, but you know, I've got an actual line to where AimPoint says to hit this. Wow. So 4.2%. That is a very, very tough slope to read, and that putt there just unfortunately didn't quite have the speed correct. It was a little short, but you know, ultimately this putt is going to be I'd say 1 in 20 that you hole, 1 in maybe even 25. Super hard putt. Now 4%. We're going all the way to the grip. This one's playing very, very quick. We've got our AimPoint read. We've got our line. And let's see if we can get close to holding this. I think this is an illegal pin, but we'll roll with it. Chances. Oh my God. That's where it starts to get scary, is, you know, putts like this, you're getting a good read on, you're getting a good percent slope, you know, your speed's getting good. You know, any putt you have on the green starts to become holeable. Okay, so how far is this putt? 5, 6, about 19 feet. Let's get our AimPoint read. Generally for me, you know, if I start to see a slope a little bit more towards the end, I'll maybe take a couple of paces up and get a read from there. But generally, if you go to halfway through the putt, this point here is going to be pretty good for you to get a base read. But you know, I like to feel if there's, you know, a 2% in the middle, but then it edges to like a 3.5 at the end, I might play it at 3, you know. So for me personally, I kind of mix it up, and I can see a lot of the slope. So, you know, that's where it almost becomes a little bit hybrid, and Jamie would tell me off, but, you know, I think ultimately sometimes it helps and it hurts. And when I went to see Jamie, it was very much that your eyes and your feels, when you're adding in them things, is throwing you off. So, you know, generally, we'll try and stick to the process and keep it consistent. And if you do that every single time, do it. But if you find yourself on a putt and you're like, should I go one pace further? Am I seeing something different? All of a sudden, you're adding in all these other factors that are putting doubt into your head before you hit the putt. So, you know, when you do AimPoint, get your read, stick with that, put your fingers up and hit a good putt. Okay, so we're going to give this 2.5%. I'll put 3 fingers up and then I'll split the left finger. So we split that one in half and then we get our 2.5% read. Yeah. I'm actually going to go closer to 3, like a 2.75, get really dialed in. Brake. Ah! So 3.5% that time. Under read. So first couple we've had over reads, good read on that third putt, and then on the last putt we've just hit a bit of an under read, but I tend to pull it. So that time I may have pulled that into the hole. You know, you start to collect some really powerful data and actually identify, well, firstly, is my speed good? You know, am I hitting good speed, therefore the brake is reacting how it should? Obviously, if you're hitting it firmer, the ball's just going to go straight through the brake. If you're hitting it softer, it's going to fall offline. So ultimately, your speed has to be fantastic. Speed was really good that time. Are you starting it online? So, you know, generally I got a bit of an under read on a left to right putt. Maybe I've pulled it a hair up the slope, and you know, fortunately enough, we've got away with it. We've holed the putt. But you know, you start to get this real data and understanding of, right, am I hitting good putts? Am I hitting it at good speed? And am I getting good reads? And once you start to blend all them three together, you start to become a pretty good putter. So if you do find yourself on a putting green that's too slopey or whatever, I've just bought these little plastic things online. They're like ghost holes that you can just throw down on the green. And you know, now we've got a pin that's on a flat slope, so you know, you're not battling stuff, and a very good little thing to have in your bag, especially when you go onto the putting green. If every hole's taken up, chuck this one down and you can keep putting. So, you know, a couple of things that pros have in their bag that might be little gems that you need in yours, because these are all the little devices that keep these guys at the top level. Okay, so I've just got the Pace Pure ruler down here now, and I've got it at 10 inches, 15 and 20, and generally I'll kind of run through this most days and hit each putt with a certain length backstroke and try to get them all to the same distance. So, you know, you're effectively training a slower, quicker, middle tempo stroke. And this is something I did with Jamie when I went to see him. It was very powerful, and definitely something that's really helped train my speed, is this really simple and effective drill. So 3 different length of backstrokes there, and pretty good. So all of a sudden, you know, you start to get pretty good at speed, and then I'll move this 10-inch one back to 25, and so on. Just keep running through this, keep training speed. So as I say, I'll just vary this up, and I, you know, keep moving this back 5 inches every single time, and you know, all of a sudden you get pretty good at dialing in your speed, and you definitely find yourself struggle at maybe the slower pace ones, or maybe you struggle with the quicker tempo strokes. So, you know, it's a very powerful training way of getting your pace, and ultimately standing there hitting 3 putts to the same hole. Does that train speed? I mean, I think it's a great skill test. You know, if you go through and you go, all right, let's see how many putts from 30 feet I can lag 1 foot past the hole, but I don't think that's training speed. This is actually training it. So, you know, as I say, loads of little nuggets that you get off of tour pros, different coaches, and you know, I've picked up through the years. So that's the putting done. We're going to move on to some short game. Okay, so on to the short game. This is getting our run outs. So what do I mean by that? How far does my lob wedge run out? Now, generally on something around about 10 or 11 stimp. I normally play week in, week out on Clutch Pro Tour. Runs out about 27 feet, so 9 paces. These are a lot slower, a little bit sandier. So I'm going to hit 3 chip shots now and land them hopefully in a consistent patch. Money. So I'm going to put my spirit level down to, and this is literally like 10 feet of run out, maybe a hair uphill, but the greens are soft, they're pretty slow at the minute, and there is a little bit of sand. So, you know, as ridiculous that sounds, my lob wedge is running out 10 feet. But what we can do from that is get pretty dialed in, and I'm going to show you how now. Okay. So now we've got our landing area right around that spirit level. So just a hair higher, that one. Beautiful. Pretty simple chip shot now, but where is our landing area? So this front part of the green is actually coming downhill a hair. Maybe we can reduce that by a pace. So we're actually going to add on 1 step of how far this is going to run out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know it's roughly around this area, and generally when I'm in a tournament, I'm trying to find like a light patch or a dark patch as to where I can land this shot. So, you know, I've seen that the green actually cuts round there, and now when I'm here, I'm kind of visualizing my landing area. How hard have I got to hit it to land it there? Pretty good. Perfect. So 3 very good chip shots, and similar to the putting, I'm trying to be clear on my process, understand each part to it, and you know, this isn't guesswork. I know that my lob wedge just run out 10 foot on a slightly uphill, so I know it's probably going to run out 12, 13 foot on a slightly downhill slope here, and I'm not guessing a landing area. I know that this is running out that far, so now all I need to do is land it on that spot. So now I'm going to hit some chip shots from the rough, and we're going to give ourselves some realistic lies that, you know, you might find out on the course, and you know, you might find yourself get an absolute stinker in there, and then we'll get like 1 further up, just random. So now it's all about reading the lies. This first one here, let's have a little look. It's actually quite bare. Club can go in behind it pretty good. So, you know, generally this isn't actually going to affect it too much. This one, I say it's not going to affect it much. It's definitely going to add on a couple of paces just by being in the rough and not out of a tight fairway lie. So, you know, that 10 foot that it was running out all of a sudden now becomes 15, 16 feet. So, as I say, this isn't guesswork, this is actual data. Just bounced on me a hair, but running out absolutely perfect. So again, pretty similar. This one's actually not too bad, but sometimes in the rough, if it's a hair sat down, I might try and add a little bit of loft to the club. So I'm actually going to go open face here, lower the shaft a hair, and just try and get this one kicking up a bit. Comes out higher. Beautiful chip shot. So now we find ourselves in thick rough, and you know, this one I'm not really judging a run out distance, or realistically I'm not even really trying to get this close. This would simply be getting this back onto the green, not being too cute with it and leaving it in the rough. So, you know, to get this one out, I'm probably just going to get a hair steeper, club out wider, and chop down on it. And realistically, if that gets on the front, I mean, not bad, but you know, it's all about reading the lie and playing it slightly different depending on what shot you have in front of you. So, you know, as I say, if I need to, I can add a little bit of loft. If it's in the thick rough, you know, we might need to get out here and steep onto the top of it. So all these little nuggets that I personally take for granted, you might not know, and hopefully this helps your short game around the green. Okay, so we're now in the bunker, and I'm just going to hit some short-sided bunker shots and really work on seeing how good my low point control is. Obviously, if you're taking too much sand, the ball isn't going to get out. If you're taking too little sand, we'll do this in the right direction, you know, the ball's going to go too far. So it's about controlling how good you are with your low point. So I'm trying to literally land this on the rake, and by doing that we're kind of getting that middle ground of how much sand I'm taking out. Pretty good. Pretty good. So all of a sudden, you know, I'm trying to figure out how much sand do I need to take out of the bunker. That's probably the number one thing is, you know, if I'm hitting like a real splashy shot and something that's trying to chase, I'm really trying to take a bunch of sand, big swing. If, you know, I'm hitting a longer shot, I'm trying to almost just clip the top of the sand and nip it out of there. So, you know, this is a really good drill when you find yourself just almost just trying to hit them just out the bunker. You start to understand how low the club needs to go through, how much speed you need to put in it, and you know, this is a really, really good way of training it. So very fortunate down this short game area that we've actually got a pitching area here as well. So this is a 60-yard shot, and I kind of always end my short game sessions with this practice, and that's just going to be my length of swing. So my left arm parallel to the ground, I call this 9 o'clock, and I do have some other variations to it, but we'll be hitting it over the net and onto the 8 fairway. So, you know, the only one we can really work on is the 9 o'clock 60-yarder, and yeah, a really effective way for you to get pretty dialed in with the numbers. And you know, all of a sudden you have a favourite number into that par 5. How far do you want to leave yourself? Well, I know that my lob wedge at 9 o'clock goes 60 yards. So, you know, this is how I end all my sessions, and we'll hit a couple of pitches. So I'll finish off all my short game sessions with the putting template, and a really, really good way just to keep your stroke in shape. And yeah, I love this training aid, and it keeps my stroke where I want it to be, work on some start line, and yeah, I could do this also for hours. You know, everything I'm doing in these practice sessions, it's got a little bit of purpose behind it, and hopefully an impact towards my golf game. So that's how you can be effective with your short game practice. And I may do one of these videos on long game if you guys enjoy it, and if you do, please think about hitting that subscribe button, as it really, really does help me out. Check out my recent videos right here. We will see you all for the next one.